Okay, I'm back. When we left off, we were talking about the abomination of cinema that is known as the movie 2012. Let me just say that it bewilders me how there is a total lack of logic in this movie. I mean, granted, it's based on a theory that is barely standing on its own two legs, but you think if you're going to make a movie about a global crisis, you might want to have some knowledge of what could happen. I mean, from what I remember, all they've established is that the core is getting way hotter than it should. And, well, that's it. The core is getting hotter, and it's basically turning all the plates on the world into surfboards that are all just floating around even more on the liquid core. So there is even a part where they mentioned that the North Pole was now in my native Wisconsin. That was the only part that was legitimately entertaining in that movie, because, believe me, it gets friggin' cold in this state. But one line, it wasn't even a whole scene. It was what is it was like something like, where's the North Pole now? It's in Wisconsin. That's the North Pole? Actually, no, now it's the South Pole. It was something like that. It was the stupidest line you'd ever heard, but it actually made several people in the theater chuckle because we happen to live in Wisconsin, and this movie came out when it was starting to get really cold. Alright, so there's no sense of logic in this movie. That it is totally unrealistic as all get out. The characters cheat death so many times, they could get like a part in the new Final Destination movie. There was a part where they flew... Okay, before I talk about the plane, I have to mention this. They go to... When they're camping, they happen to be in Yellowstone. And since Yellowstone is basically on a volcano, Yellowstone starts erupting. John Cusack is in an RV driving. A large chunk of magma smolders off the back of the RV, and they continue driving. Somehow, they make it to a place where they find a biplane with his divorced wife and her boyfriend. Nobody knows how to fly a plane, but thankfully, the boyfriend is taking lessons on flying. Well, isn't that convenient? Isn't it also convenient that when they're flying through the city, the building that crushes down, falls down right in front of them, they imagine to just fly right through that, and they manage to just keep on flying. It is so great that this movie is poorly written. Otherwise, I might still not have ever believed that. And you know what bewilders me even further? I know several people that enjoy this movie. And it blows my mind on so many levels how they could enjoy this. I went to see this movie with two of my friends. One of them figured that, okay, this movie wasn't as great as I thought it would be. The other one thought it was like the coolest thing he'd ever seen. In fact, there was a day in class, the other day in class, we were somehow got into the topic of this godforsaken piece of film, and he said something like, Matt, anytime a plane flies through a building, that automatically makes the building cool. The movie cool. You know what? I just had a revelation. 2012 isn't the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. It's the best! Total unrealisticness, great special effects that mask a sloppy plot, and a plane flying through a building. Screw Pulp Fiction that actually had decent writing, that was out of chronological order, that actually made you think. Screw the comedy it had, the action it had, the good acting it had. Screw Pulp Fiction. 2012 is the best movie. Are you mental? You know who you are. If you happen to watch this movie, are you mental? Is there something wrong in your brain that makes you think this movie was good? Alright, I said earlier that there were several characters that lived in this movie. There is a couple million characters that lived in this movie. And basically all the characters you do care about will die. I kind of cared about the president. He died. I cared about the Hindu. He died. I cared about George Segal. He died. John Cusack and his pack of friends, they all lived. But basically, ever since the core started getting hotter in the year 2009, the government has been building these arcs that were the size of like 100 football fields put together. Basically like Noah's Ark, only more high tech. They had rooms, they had storage. And they built like 3 of them, and these things were massive. We're not talking about a dinky little wooden boat like, well, it wouldn't have been actually that dinky. We aren't talking about a wooden boat that Noah had. We're talking about this massive, like, aircraft carrier upon aircraft carrier boat. And they made 3 of them in 3 years. How would they do that? That's not even physically, that's not even considerably possible. This movie, one simple word for it, impossible. It is impossible that a good actor like John Cusack can just suck. It is impossible that special effects can mask a sloppy script like this. It is impossible that, I don't know, it is impossible that they could ever rescue anyone from the global disaster that 2012 is supposed to be. It is impossible that the characters cheat death as many times as they do. This movie, it is impossible that they were planning a TV show spin-off called 2013 about them trying to rebuild the world. Thank God that was scrapped before they had the chance to blow this thing even further out of proportion. When I first read that they were playing that, my heart stopped for 5 minutes. I was on the ground, like, tweaking out because there might be some form of a sequel to this movie. This movie that is basically sequel-proof because it's the end of the world. Making this movie in the first place was a mistake, a big mistake. When you have a theory that basically defies logic, because God, being a man of faith, God can end the world whenever He chooses. You will not know the hour nor the time that He will come. And when people think that they can play God by predicting what a civilization thousands of years ago said the world would end in, probably because either A, they ran out of room, or B, figured civilization will crumble upon itself before it even happened to get to 2012. I've totally lost my train of thought. Whatever. If you heard what if you haven't blacked out by now, and actually listened to what I've said, you probably know where I was going with that, because I don't know where I was going with that at all. It's kind of sad. Maybe I shouldn't have done this thing off improv, but you know what? I'm already going for 10 minutes again on this video, so I'm just gonna stop while I can. Alright, if you want some cheap thrills based on special effects and death-defying stunts that defy logic as well, then 2812 might possibly be the best movie you've ever seen. But if you are a man like me that has a semi-healthy respect for logic and enjoys good writing, good acting, and an overall good movie, then stay away from 2012. This is Matt, signing off.